Alright, welcome back everybody. It's been a while. I just got back from a multi-week work trip. I tried to post a whole bunch of shorts just to keep things going. So yeah, I got to fly while I was up in Idaho. And this footage you're looking at right now is from the first flight. Unfortunately, the camera stuck around for about 14 seconds. And the rest of the flight was it down by my backpack. So that's all you get of that one. This is the second day, Flight 2, and this is in a 108-2 Stinson. Really, really cool plane. It's a 1947, has a 165 horsepower, 6-cylinder Franklin engine. I've never flown behind one of those before, but it ran pretty smooth. The only weird thing is it has a vibe range between 2100 and 2300 RPM you got to try and avoid. Other than that, really smooth running engine. It was also really nice flying a tailwheel that had 100 horsepower more than the J3 Cub or the Champ that I flew. Now, I don't know if I put it in the title or if I'll put it in the description, but I'm going to do something a little different. There's going to be a safety minute here later on in this video because something did end up happening, and I kind of want to talk about it for a little bit. And since this is my channel and my video, I can talk about whatever I want. So, this is Caldwell, Idaho. Keul is the identifier. This runway is 5,500 feet long. It is 100 feet wide. There's a helicopter training center there as well. They use the taxiways. And this is the first takeoff of the second day. Alright, so the plan for this training session, and I do already have my tailwheel endorsement, but I've never flown this plane before, and I'm still a very low-time tailwheel pilot, so I figured flying with an instructor was a good idea. Today's plan was just to do a couple of takeoffs and landings at Caldwell, and then we were going to go to Emmett, which is a slightly smaller field, and then Parma, which is an even smaller one. So the runways are going to get smaller and smaller as the day goes on. This was about a 2-hour training flight. In fact, the GoPro didn't make it through the entire flight. Ran out of battery before it was over. The prior day that you didn't get to see was my first flight in the plane, and we went up, did a bunch of air work, steep turns, stalls, just get a feel for the airplane. It does handle differently. It's got a lot more power than the previous tailwheel planes. That makes a difference. It has an electrical system. It even has a Garmin 430. You can shoot instrument approaches in this plane. And it has flaps. So I had to get used to all of that again. And it definitely likes to balloon up on the second notch of flaps in this plane. Also has a yoke instead of a stick. There you go, first landing. Tastefully edited so you didn't hear the bounce. Not sure what the deal was. I had a harder time three-point landing this plane than I did the J3 or the Champ. Wheel landings, I did those the day before, and those were beautiful. Really, really went nice. There's a fair amount of a quartering headwind out today, so that was adding a little challenge to everything. Not too bad. Anyhow, here comes the next touch and go. Some of these were full stop taxi backs, some of them were touch and goes. On the shorter runways, when we did touch and goes, Jim there was getting the flaps for me, which was definitely helpful. Bounce that one a little, not too bad.
Yeah, that's fine. Alright.
So here you go. The procedure for taking back off again is reset the flaps, push in the carb heat, try not to drift off to the left. Very noticeable in the tail wheel when the tail comes off the ground and you're at a high power setting. That gyroscopic precession is going to get you, and the plane's going to want to pull to the left, and you got to be ready for it. Anyhow, that runway, like I said, was 5,500 feet long. It was 100 feet wide. I believe now we're going to cruise on over to Emmett, which is S78. It is 3,300 feet long and 56 feet wide. Emmett's really cool. You fly out kind of over this plain here, and then you hit a cliff wall that you fly over, and Emmett is down in a valley surrounded partially by these cliffs. Gives a really cool illusion when you're flying in there, because you're almost right at the cliff level, flying down and around and to the runway. While we're flying there, I'll talk briefly about what's coming up. My first ever real world rejected takeoff. And there you go. You see us flying over the cliffs. That's kind of cool. First real world rejected takeoff as a pilot flying a small plane. I've had plenty as a flight engineer in the C5, but this was a little different. And I'll talk about it more when we head over to Parma, because that's where it happens at. So this being a smaller runway, both shorter and narrower, there's a few optical illusions that didn't exist on the bigger runway. And I'm figuring that out because I turned a little too soon, thinking I was closer than I actually was, and end up getting it fairly well worked out. You can see there's a golf course right here on the end, and it's got trees on either side. You just kind of thread the needle between the trees and fly over the displaced threshold, which is right here solely there so we don't knock over golf carts. So this one is a full stop taxi back. You see we cleared the runway. I'm going to spare you the whole taxi time. And I think this takeoff, if you pay attention, you'll see that nose want to come to the left right when the tail comes up. There you go. Just a little pull to the left. If you anticipate it, then you can be on the rudder. Now this plane's rudder, way sensitive compared to anything else I've ever flown to date. It does not take a whole lot to get the nose to swing one way or the other, which can lead to some overcorrections if you're not on top of it. Anyhow, it's cool. You'll see us fly out. We'll make this left-hand pattern, and you can see the cliffs out there, and we just kind of stay down in this valley the whole time, just inside of all of it. Really pretty outside. Soon. I was too high. Tried to slip it in, but it wasn't going to make it. So just went ahead and went for the go around. A lot of the effort on this was just making sure I was on speed for that final approach. It makes things a whole lot easier and more manageable. Another full stop taxi back. Thought I edited this out, but I guess I didn't, so you guys get to enjoy the taxi on this one. Really, really neat little airfield, though. Really pretty down there. None of these airports are towered, so making radio calls on the CTAF frequencies. Lots to get used to from coming from the Cub and the Champ. Having a radio to have to use, paved runways, flaps, all kinds of fancy bits. Just a little to the left that time, but I was a lot quicker on recovering from it. We doing another one? I think we are. Sorry, I'm a little off my mark here. I edited all this morning, and then I had all kinds of things to fix after I got home, and I'm just now getting to the voiceover, so we're kind of watching this together. There we go. That was touch and go. And you can see Jim reached up and got the flaps for me. Otherwise, too much going on such a short runway to be able to make that work out. So now we're heading over to Parma, 50S. The runway there is 2,700 feet long, paved, and it's only 50 feet wide. The procedure when you're coming in to land, touch and go, whatever in the Stinson is you throttle back to start your descent when you're abeam your touchdown point, just like a normal airplane, and you're going to pull back to about 1,700 RPM in this plane. When you do, you need to put on the carb heat. And up until now, the carb heat had a tendency at slightly higher power settings to kind of work itself back in and close. So you just had to make sure it was staying on. So you pull the carb heat in, and then make sure you're in the white arc, set your first notch of flaps, and then the remaining flaps as you need them, maintain your approach speed, and make whatever kind of touchdown you're going to make. Coming up here in Parma, I think it was our second landing. We'll see it when it happens. Something I wasn't prepared for. We brief engine failures, thrust reducing failures for a takeoff. You know, if there's any kind of thrust reducing issue on a takeoff roll, I'm going to reject and get the plane stopped on the runway remaining. If I don't have any runway remaining and I'm airborne, we're going to go 30 degrees off and try and find a spot to land. If we're at pattern altitude and we can make it back to the field, we're going to make it back to the field. You know, standard briefing, things that we're all supposed to think about when we take off. But we don't brief that for a touch and go. And I dare to say a lot of people's mindset's not thinking about that on a touch and go. I know mine wasn't. I was focused on all of the other procedures of what it takes to get the tailwheel plane on the ground, keep it going straight, pushing in the carb heat, getting the power back up, resetting the flaps, all of that good stuff, getting to a good airspeed, make sure everything looks good, and getting back in the air. That's a lot of things happening on a short runway or on a touch and go, because the whole time you're doing this, you're still eating up runway. We'll go ahead and watch this landing. So there's no taxiway that goes all the way down, so partway down here you just got to do a 180 and back taxi on the runway. Anyhow, what happens during the incident? I come in to do a touch and go. Jim is going to get the flaps for me, and I push the carb heat in, I push the power up, and the very first thing I notice is the engine doesn't sound right. It's not making power. I look down and verify it is not making full takeoff power, and we're running out of runway quick. There are trees at the end of this runway. I realize that the carb heat is on, So I try to push it back in, but now it will not go in. The knob is stuck out. It will not go in, and we are stuck with carb heat on. And at that point, we no longer have enough runway or airspeed to get the airplane back in the air. And the decision to reject is made. Jim took the controls at that point to make sure we could get stopped in time. And it was fairly uneventful. So there you see he got the flaps for me. Notice it doesn't sound quite right. I realize the carb heat is on. I'm trying to turn it off. It's not going. The decision to reject is made.
I got it. You got it. All right.
Jim is taking the controls and getting us stopped.
Yeah, they kept fighting coming back out.
Plenty of runway left, but
It seems to be stuck.
reaction time's a real thing.
Well, that was a good
Something to think about when you're out there flying. What are you going to do on this touch and go if all of a sudden the engine doesn't make power? Are you going to have enough runway left to stop? Make that decision to reject early. Turn that touch and go into a full stop. There's nothing wrong with turning it into a full stop. You're already on the ground. Keep it there. As soon as I heard that engine not making power, should have just immediately made the decision. There was nothing pushing us to get back in the air. Anyhow, we stopped, looked at it, had it looked at, got it unstuck. So this is after it was fixed, and we're heading back out to take off, go back to Caldwell for a full stop there. Unfortunately, the GoPro doesn't quite make it. It's going to run out of battery here before we get all the way back. Uneventful takeoff, and then flight back to Caldwell for a full stop. Hope you guys got something out of it. It was a lot of fun. If you have the opportunity and you're up in the Boise area, go over to Caldwell, check out Snake River Flight Club. Jim is an awesome instructor. They have several other airplanes. They all seem like they're in really great shape. The Stinson is obviously my favorite. It was a ton of fun to fly. Their rates are pretty affordable and on par with everybody else, and no reason not to go do it. If you're out there, check out the scenery, enjoy the flying. Hope you all enjoyed. I'm going to get back to building this airplane now that I'm home, at least while I can. So stay tuned for some more build videos. If you haven't caught up on all the other stuff, go back and take a look at that. Hope you all enjoyed it. I'll leave you some pictures of the airplane, and let me know if you have any comments or questions down below.